Alright, we're going to do a little something different here. We want to do like some fantasy booking, but before we do that, we'll talk about Lockdown just briefly. My thing with Lockdown, I thought the matches were good. I thought maybe some of the finishes weren't the right finishes. There was a lot of them that just didn't make sense to me. But you know, there still was a lot of great effort in the matches. Lethal Lockdown was awesome. I love that match. The main event, I think, here's my problem. The thing was, I think Kurt Angle wants to do MMA, and I think that he doesn't actually want to go out there and actually fight.
Yeah.
So he's trying to bring MMA to TNA. And if you want to be a fighter, then you need to fight. And if you want to be a pro wrestler, then you need to be a pro wrestler.
I think that, you know, since it was the first time they've ever done that type of match, I give them credit for it. I'm not going to overly bash it or anything, because I thought that really the MMA pro wrestling style, I think mixing it together more would create a better match. I think it was just like a half MMA match and a half pro wrestling match. Well, that's kind of how it turned out.
And if you watch any MMA fight, just because somebody gets taken down doesn't mean the ref's going to stand it up.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happened.
Exactly.
So the momentum was killed every single time. If Angle would have got Mount and then Joe would have freaking put him in a triangle and they would transition out of that and all that, then it would have been a lot more entertaining and much more fast-paced. But you're dealing with something that's a whole other animal. So, I mean, I give him credit, but it just didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to.
Overall, though, I thought the pay-per-view, I was pretty happy with it. But we're going to move on. Don't have a lot of time, so... we're going to start booking Sacrifice 2008. I'm going to go over the main event, what we have down. This is what best represents TNA as well. We're not going to come across as overly markish.
No, we're not going to be like AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe in the main event in an unbreakable rematch.
Everything is going to make sense, and we're going to have storylines behind everything. So this is kind of a shout-out to Glenn Gilberti here, because I know he's kind of knocked die-hard fans for not knowing, you know, how to present something, or thinking that there's going to be a Ring of Honor invasion. You know, Ring of Honor and TNA, I think, would have a good partnership. I think it would benefit both Ring of Honor, TNA, and the fans, but that's for another time, another video. The main event we have for Sacrifice is Samoa Joe versus Booker T. There's name value, name versus name, and I'll tell you why. Because Booker T, obviously, you saw a little bit of an attitude change on last week's Impact. So he can go with the route that the reason he left the WWE in the first place was to help the young talent. And then when he got to TNA, the young talent didn't want his help. They were they disrespected him. They hurt his wife. And then, you know, he first came into TNA, he asked Samoa Joe, you know, tried to give him some advice, and Samoa Joe didn't want it. You know, these young guys have no respect for him wanting to come to TNA and help out. That's what we could go with for that storyline. And
I think that Joe should be more apologetic and be like, Booker, you know, you misunderstood me and all that. And Booker's just the egomaniac. It's like everything that Joe says is somewhat disrespectful to him. You know, so you're calling me a liar.
No matter what. No matter what.
A liar. You know, everything is accusing Joe, and then I think eventually Joe gets pissed, and then you have your feud.
Exactly. Matt Morgan versus Tomko. Now, the reason I would do this match is because Matt Morgan has said time and time again now that he is going to be the blueprint of pro wrestling as far as how a big guy looks and wrestles. And the #1 threat to Matt Morgan as far as big guys go and having his spot is Tomko. So that makes perfect sense.
And the reason that I like this match also is back when they were in the WWE, they weren't really big names in either position. So this is their way to show that, you know, they really are a valuable commodity in pro wrestling, and TNA has them.
The Motor City Machine Guns versus the Latin American Exchange for the World Tag Team titles. Obviously, the vacated tag team titles now at this point. Obviously, the two best tag teams in TNA. What more needs to be said about that? And now, I mean, I understand the Motor City Machine Guns kind of have some quote-unquote heat. I'm not going to go into what they have heat for. I mean, obviously, there's been some rumors and there's been some stuff said. But now you're not punishing the Motor City Machine Guns anymore. You're punishing the pro wrestling fan. And that's the way I feel. These are the two best tag teams in TNA. Why not have them face for the World Tag Team titles?
Absolutely.
James Storm versus Christian Cage versus AJ Styles, and for this I would add a stipulation This will be the King of the Mountain qualifier, the first one.
Don't you think we should bring in Sting for that?
Yeah, we could. We could bring in Sting for that as well.
I say we bring in Sting just for name value.
Yep.
I mean, he's got to be on the pay-per-view.
James Storm, Christian Cage, AJ Styles were all involved in the big spot at Lockdown on top of the cage.
Yeah.
So I think AJ could say, hey, you know, to James Storm, you know, I appreciate you pushing the ladder over and putting my career on the line. You know, the phenomenal one, the Prince of Phenomenal. I'm the best in TNA, and you're just going to push me off the ladder through a table because you think you're going to hurt Christian and end my career?
Yeah.
That's nice. I appreciate you looking out for me like that.
Right.
You know, since we're on a team.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
something like that.
Plus, Christian always wants the title.
Yeah,
Still
exactly.
calls himself the champ. And it'd also be a good build-up going into Slammiversary to see who's going to be in the
And you got
Mountain.
names that can deliver right there.
Absolutely.
And Raisha Saeed versus Gail Kim versus Roxy Laveau. You could have a stipulation, something as, you know, if Raisha Saeed wins, Gail Kim and Roxy Laveau can't have a title shot for a certain amount of time, maybe 6 months, a year, whatever.
I'd say if Raisha Saeed or Roxy Laveau win, Gail Kim couldn't have a title shot.
Yeah.
So that way this is really double stacked against Gail Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I would do
like
that. And plus, Raisha Saeed, Gail Kim, Roxy Laveau, all of those women can deliver a good match. I don't think that all the women are cut out to be on pay-per-view, flat
Absolutely,
out.
no
I don't
way.
think all the names in TNA are you know, capable of delivering.
I think some of the women need to go back to dancing in a cage like they did in the weekly pay-per-views, in my opinion. They can't wrestle for...
Yeah, I mean, it's not that they can't deliver, like, as far as, like, on an Impact or whatever. You can throw them on Impact if you want to, but when it comes to pay-per-view, man, there's only certain names that should be there.
Yeah.
You don't need to have every name in TNA on pay-per-view.
No.
And I think that's something that we've ran into. P.D. Williams, new X Division champ. I'm happy with that, by the way. Versus Jay Lethal. Obviously, the story there, you know, Jay Lethal didn't have a fair opportunity against P.D. Williams. P.D. Williams came in after a match with Johnny Devine, ambushed him, took the belt. Curryman versus Consequences Creed. You know, Consequences Creed was eliminated at Lockdown, the X Division escape match, by Curryman.
Yep.
So they can say, hey, you know, Consequences can say, I came into TNA to make my mark, and Curryman stopped me from making my mark, so, you know, I want another opportunity at him.
Also, I think that you could have, you know, Consequences be kind of like, you know, the confident kid that's trying to challenge Curryman, and then Curryman spits nothing but Japanese at him, gets him really frustrated, and then he's had it. You know, then he attacks Curryman, and then Curryman will in turn, you know, accept the challenge.
Last but not least, 8 matches, right? That's what we're going with. Kaz versus Eric Young, or Super Eric, whatever you want to call it. I think it would be Super Eric. It makes sense to do that. Obviously, Kaz is pissed off. Super Eric cost him an opportunity at the World Tag Team Championship. He had the belt. You know, and then they had to forfeit it over because of Super Eric.
And the real irony of it all is Super Eric is Kaz's creation. He told Eric that he had to, you know, stand up to the monsters and bring out a new thing inside of him, you know, and that's what happened. And so now, you know, if Kaz created it, then it's his job to kill it, and I think that's the route that they should go with. So, I mean,
that's the card that we have that makes the most sense to us right now. And so let us know what you think. Send us your feedback. Glenn, I hope you like it. You know, I hope that this isn't just, you know, some marks booking for TNA. I think that we actually put this together in a logical manner. It only took us about 30 minutes too. You know, so it shows that you can deliver a great card on pay-per-view that's original without gimmicks on gimmicks on gimmicks on gimmicks on gimmicks. You know?
Absolutely. And, you know, you can't just put everybody on the roster. It's just not going to work. You've got to be able to separate the real talent that deserves to be on pay-per-view from the talent that maybe still needs work.
Absolutely. And that's just the way it is. Brutal reality of it. But look at this, too. 2 stipulations, no gimmicks on the card. 2 stipulations, no gimmicks. Because the roster can deliver on simply just being a talented roster.
In my opinion, I mean, gimmick matches should be about cages and ladders, and
when you look
that's
forward
about
to a singles match with a 30-minute time limit or just a normal tag team match, there's a problem. You know, you're supposed to look forward to gimmick matches, but when there's so many gimmicks, you actually look forward to singles matches. Or tag team matches, just plain matches, and that's the way it's gotten.
Absolutely.
But, alright, we're going to wrap this up. I know we're running out of time, but we will see you guys next week.
Alright.